Today we're going to continue looking at section 8.2 and 8.3, and we're going to look at negative exponents. Alright, so before we get started looking at the negative exponents, let's do some review. In number 1, let's simplify x squared times x to the 5th. Remember, when we multiply powers with the same base, we can add their exponents. So this becomes x to the 7th. Alright, in the next example, remember that we have to distribute our power as an exponent. So we're going to get x to the 6th because 3 times 2 is 6. And we're going to get y to the 10th because 5 times 2 is 10. So that is our answer. In the next problem, number 3, remember that any number or variable raised to the power of 0 is 1. So this problem, our answer is 1. In number 4, remember that when we divide powers with the same base, we can subtract their exponents. So this is x to the 4th because 6 minus 2 is 4. Alright, if we look at these 4 problems below, they're combining all of the rules we've learned so far. So let's go ahead and walk through them for practice. Alright, in the first one, the first thing you'd want to do is distribute your exponents. So we're going to get a negative 5 squared, a to the 6th, b squared, and then I'm going to distribute in my 4. Now, whenever we distribute it in an even exponent to a number that's negative, it becomes positive. So this is just going to become a to the 4th, then b to the 4th, and c to the 4th. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is square my 5. So I have now negative 25. And then I'm going to combine my common powers. So I'm going to start with my a's. I now have a to the 10th because 6 plus 4 is 10. Now I'm going to look at my b's. 2 plus 4 is 6, so I have b to the 6th. And I don't have any c's, so c to the 4th is by itself. And that's our answer. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the one on the right. So we have 14x cubed squared all over 2x squared cubed. So we would want to simplify the top and then simplify the bottom. So if I look at just the top of this fraction, I have 14x to the 6th. On the bottom, if I distribute my 3, I have 2 cubed x to the 6th. Now the next thing I might do is do my 2 cubed, which is 8. So now I have 14 x to the 6th over 8x to the 6th. Now, because 6 minus 6 is 0, remember that anything raised to the power of 0 is 1. It's the same thing as just canceling. So 14 over 8 can simplify. If we divide both top and bottom by 2, we get 7 over 4. So our answer for this problem is 7 over 4. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the next example. Alright, here we're taking an entire fraction and raising it to the power of 2. When we do that, we have to distribute this 2 to everything in our numerator and our denominator. So we're going to get 2 squared, x squared, y squared. That's our numerator. But now I have to take the 2 and also distribute it to the denominator. So we get y to the 6th, z squared, x squared. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is simplify my 2 squared and make that a 4. And then I'm going to look at my x's. I have an x squared here and an x squared here, and those are the same, so they cancel. Now I'm just going to, because it got a little messy, rewrite it. I now have 4y squared over y to the 6th z. Remember that when you have powers with the same base that are being divided, you subtract the exponents. So 6 minus 2 is 4. But remember that since 6 is bigger, our 4 y's that remain are going to be in our denominator. So our answer is 4y to the 4th over y to the 4th z. Alright, let's go ahead and do this next example. So here we have negative n cubed. So this is going to stay negative n cubed. Here I have a times a negative 2 cubed, x cubed, y to the 6th, n cubed. Now I'm going to distribute in my 2. And again, remember, anything that is negative with an even exponent is going to become positive. So this is just going to become an positive x to the 4th y squared. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and figure out what negative 2 cubed is, which is negative 8. So now I have negative n cubed times negative 8, x cubed y to the 6th, n cubed x to the 4th y squared. I'm going to go ahead and combine the powers that I can. So I have an x cubed and an x to the 4th. So that would give me negative n cubed times negative 8 x to the 7th. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and we'll do green. I'm going to look at my y's. I have y to the 6th and a y squared, which would give me y to the 8th. So we're done with the y's. And then I'm just going to bring down my n cubed. Okay, now the negative here in front is going to multiply with this negative 8. And a negative times a negative is a positive, so we're going to lead our answer with a positive 8. Alright, then we have an n cubed and an n cubed, which make n to the 6th. Then we have our x to the 7th and our y to the 8th. So the answer here is 8n to the 6th, x to the 7th, y to the 8th. Whew, that was a long one. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the new lesson for today. And again, we're going to be talking about powers with negative exponents. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to simplify exponential expressions involving negative exponents. The rule is that if the exponent is negative, you're going to move the variable holding the exponent to the opposite side of the fraction bar and make it positive. So if we look at this first example we have here, let me go ahead and go back to our red. I have x to the negative 6. Well, all numbers exist over an invisible 1 as a fraction. Because x has an exponent that's negative, we're going to take that piece and we're going to move it to our denominator to make it positive. So when we do that, we now would have 1 over x to the positive 6. And then that's your answer. In example number 2, our negative exponent's in the denominator, so we move it to the numerator, which would give us an x cubed over 1, but you don't have to write over 1, so the best answer here would just be x cubed. In number 3, in this one we're moving two different pieces. We're going to take our y to the negative 8 and we're going to move it to the top, and then we're going to take the x to the negative 3rd and we're going to move it to the bottom. That 2 is going to stay in our numerator. So we now have 2 and we have y to the positive 8 since we moved it up, and then in our bottom we now have x cubed. So our answer is 2y to the 8th over x cubed. Alright, let's continue practicing this. So number 1, we've got x to the negative 8. Again, we think of this over 1, so we're going to take our negative and we're going to move it down so we get 1 over x to the positive 8. Alright, in the next example, so again, this is over 1. Now, my negative exponent only applies to the variable, so that's the only piece we're going to move to our denominator. So the answer here is going to be 3 over x to the positive 5. Alright, in the next example, again, if we think of this entire thing over an invisible 1, we're going to take each negative exponent and move it down. So we have y to the negative 8th and we have x to the negative 7th. Both pieces are going to move down, and we're going to get 8, because that stays, over x to the 7th, y to the 8th. Alright, and number 2, there's a couple different ways we can do this problem. What I'm going to recommend is first to go ahead and distribute our exponent. So we have 4 to the negative 2nd, and we have x to the negative 2nd. Now again, this is over 1, but since both of these are negative, we're going to put them both in our denominator. So basically we're going to flip this problem. Then we're going to get 4 squared x squared, and we can simplify our 4 squared, which is 16, so we get 1 over 16x squared. Alright, number 5. So here we have 7 over x to the negative 2nd, so we need to move that up to make it happy, to make it positive. So we have 7x squared. Again, nothing's left in the bottom, so you don't have to write over 1. Alright, in this example, our y to the negative 5th is going to move to the bottom, but be careful because something has to stay in the top, and that's going to be a 1. So we have 1 over 5y to the 5th. Alright, and number 7. Now, be careful because this 0 exponent only applies to the x. So really what we're saying in our numerator is what's 3 times 1 over y to the negative 3rd? Well, 3 times 1 is 3, so now we have 3 over y to the negative 3rd. However, because we have that negative exponent, we're going to take y to the negative 3rd and move it to the top. So now we have 3y cubed. Alright, number 8. We have 1 over 3x to the negative 3rd. So again, the first thing we're going to do is well, actually what I might do is, since this whole thing is raised to a negative exponent, I'm going to take this whole thing and move it to the top. So now we have 3x to the positive 3. And you could say over 1, but you don't have to. So then I'm going to distribute in my 3. So I have 3 cubed x cubed. 3 cubed is 27 x cubed. Alright, let's see, is there more practice? No, not on that page. Is there another page? I can't remember. Yes, there is. A little bit more. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to combine all of the rules we've learned so far. So we've learned about multiplying powers with the same base. We've learned about dividing powers with the same base. We've learned about having an exponent of 0. And then today we started talking about exponents that are negative. So we're going to put it all together. So the first thing that you always want to do is distribute any exponents. So in this first example, we're going to go ahead and distribute the 3. So I'm going to get 2 cubed. Whoops, not really sure what happened. Okay, hold on a second. Alright, back to, okay, so we got 2 cubed, x to the 15th, y to the negative 3rd, because negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Alright, we're going to go ahead and keep going. Remember that if you take an entire fraction, raise it to a power, we have to also distribute this 3 to everything in our denominator. So now we have 3 cubed, x to the negative 9th, and y to the positive 6th. Okay, next thing that I would choose to do is to simplify my numbers. So my 2 cubed and my 3 cubed. So when I do that, we're going to get 2 cubed is 8 and 3 cubed is 27. And if you want to, you can rewrite everything and then move from this step down. So we have x to the negative 9th and y to the 6th. Alright, now that I've done this, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate my negative exponents by moving my variables or my piece to the bottom or the top. So my y to the negative 3rd is going to come to the bottom, and my x to the negative 9 is going to go up. So now I'm going to have 8 x to the 15th x to the 9th over 27 y cubed y to the 6th. Alright, so once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and combine our powers with the same base. So in the numerator, I have my x's. So I now have 8x to the 24th over 27, and I can combine my y's to get y to the 9th. Now the last thing I want to do is just look at my 8 over 27 and ask if I can simplify that fraction. Well, they're not divisible by 8 or 3 or 4, so nope, that looks like this is my final answer. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Again, the first thing we're going to do is distribute any powers that we might have. So in this case, we're going to distribute our 3. So I have 3 x to the 6th, y to the negative 2nd, and now I'm going to start distributing my 3. I have 2 cubed x to the 21st, because remember when we distribute in, we're multiplying with the exponent, and y cubed. Alright, now that I've done that, I'm going to rearrange just a little bit. I'm going to take my 2 cubed and move it to the front next to my 3. And then I'm going to put the x's next to each other. X to the 6th, x to the 21st. Then I'm going to put my y's next to each other. Y to the negative 2nd, y cubed. Alright, now that I've done that, it makes this a little bit easier. I have 2 cubed, which is 8 times 3. Which I could just go right to saying, alright, we've got 24. Now I'm going to look at my x's. 6 plus 21 makes x to the 27th. And here, if I combine my y's, I'm going to get rid of that negative exponent, because negative 2 plus 3 becomes a positive y. So our answer is 24 x to the 27th times y. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 3. Alright, here we have, again, remember, distribute your exponent first. So we're going to take the 2 and we're going to distribute it in. So we have 8 times k to the negative 4th times m squared all over 4 k to the negative 2nd m to the 5th. Now here I can simplify 8 over 4, and 8 over 4 is 2. So I now have 2 in my numerator. K to the negative 4th m squared over k to the negative 2nd m to the 5th. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is get rid of my negative exponents. So I'm going to go ahead and take my k to the negative 2nd, move it up, and my k to the negative 4th and move it down. And when we do that, we get 2k squared m squared over k to the 4th m to the 5th. Now I'm going to subtract my powers with the same base. Alright, so I've got a k squared over k to the 4th, so I'm subtracting my exponents. 4 minus 2 is 2, so I have 2 over, now remember, because our exponent 4 is bigger, the 2 k's that remain go in our denominator. Next I'm going to go ahead and look at my m's. 5 minus 2 is 3, so I have m cubed. Remember, because 5 is bigger, our 3 m's that remain are in our denominator. So here's our answer. Alright, why don't you try doing these last 3 problems on your own? When you're finished, have the teacher in the room check your answers to make sure you are correct. If you get stuck along the way, you can fast forward this video, and there might be some steps that help you get through the problem. When you are finished and the teacher has checked all of your answers and they are correct, you can move on to today's homework.